Hello everyone and welcome to this season's edition of the Coaches Show with the star of the show to my right here, Heath Butler. He's the head coach of the Piqua High School men's basketball team. Before we get started, Coach, I want to give some thanks to our sponsors this year. Again this year, our anchor sponsor is First Choice Paint and Body Shop. They're located at 8708 North 25A in Piqua. They're experts in painting, restoration, collision, and dent repair, and mechanical repair. Also, we want to welcome back our supporting sponsors from last year. F45 training is the new training technique, leaving competition and clients gasping for air. F45 is the most innovative, challenging, and systemized team training workout in the world. Come and train like the stars at F45 training in Piqua. They're located in the mall behind Wings and Rings. I always call them Wings and Things. Wings and Rings in that building area. Big sign on the front of it, F45. You can also find them on F45.com, Piqua, Ohio. We also want to thank Sherry Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram Trucks at 8645 North County Road 25A. When you get there, don't be confused by the new construction. They are open for business and want to help you with your new or used car or truck selection. And don't forget Morris Heating and Cooling, currently located at 517 North Main in Piqua. Soon to be moving to a bigger, better location at the corner of Young and College Streets in Piqua. Watch for the formal announcement in the newspaper. We want to thank each of them for their continued support of WOTVC programming through their financial contributions. We appreciate it, you guys, and we hope that all of you will take advantage of our sponsors, and we will be sure and mention them throughout the evening and throughout the season. Tonight we're going to kind of reflect a little bit on last year. Coach had a winning season, 14-11, I believe it was, and got into the tournaments, 3 deep into the tournament. It's been a long time since we got that deep, Coach. We're going to talk a little bit about the players from last year also and the schedule, and how that schedule matches up with the 2016-2017 schedule. And we're also going to talk about the roster this year and see what the coach has got in mind to kind of fill some of those holes that were created with the graduation of, I believe it was 6 seniors you lost off of last year's squad, Coach. Let's start out, first of all, let's look. You've been head coach now, what? This is your 6th year?
6th year.
Okay, so when you started in 12, okay, 7 and 17, 7 and 16.
Right.
First 2 years off. Came back the 3rd year, 12 and 11. Duplicated that in 15 at 12 and 11. Last year, 14 and 11. You had some really good talent. As I mentioned earlier, you got into the tournaments pretty deep. Haven't had that for a long time. Talk about that team a little bit. It was pretty special, wasn't it?
Very special team. As it goes, it was my 2nd class having them since freshman. Just a very great group of guys. If you take a look at all of them now, every single one of the kids we graduated either went on to a 4-year institution, is doing a ministry, or joined the armed forces. So all those kids are, not only were they great basketball players, but they're always great people, and that's what we're going to miss a lot. And that's what I think about, just how great of guys they were. But with that, not only were they great guys, but they were also very skilled. We'll talk about this year's team here in a little bit, but last year's team, just a very skilled. We weren't so athletic, especially with Bachman and Brady Hill with their ACLs a little bit, Nate Modern playing a little bit injured, and all that. So we played a lot of zone, and we're going to continue with the zone a little bit this year. But this year's team compared to last year's team is going to be a little bit more athletic. But as far as shooting the basketball, obviously, we've been doing this 6 years. That last year's team, on any given night, there's probably 4 or 5 of them that could go for 20, get hot from the 3-point line. I think we set a record for most 3-point field goals in a game with something crazy like 14, opening up with Springboro. So just a great skilled group of guys, and also a bunch of mentally tough guys. That was a class, that senior class as freshmen, due to some circumstances, didn't have a lot of success. It's been real easy for all of them, or at least some of them, to kind of pack it in and not stay with the program. But just to send them out like that, getting to the sectional final, winning 2 tournament games and winning 1 tournament game for the first time in several years, and tying most wins in a season for several years. We also, graduated the Bachman kid into the school's all-time leading scorer, and all that. So, we lost a lot, but we feel like this year, even though we may be a little bit different as far as how we play, we still look to have a lot of success this year.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier 6 seniors. Actually, there were 7 that I picked up from last year. Those 7 seniors, actually, 4 of them contributed 44 points per ball game.
Yeah, a lot of scoring, and just a lot of experience and tough grittiness about all those guys, and especially those 4 guys, Bachman, Holbein, Davis, and Gaullett. Those were the 4 that accounted for that. So we're going to miss those guys, no doubt, but at the same point in time, we're very excited for our entire program as we build it up this 6th year. And what we have at the varsity level.
Well, I remember last year you talked about the fact that you had a number of guys on the floor that could light it up any particular night. All they had to do was get hot. And I remember nights when Gaullett was out there on the floor, he'd miss a couple of shots, and then all of a sudden he hit 4 or 5 in a row. Bachman, he'd miss some shots, but then he didn't miss too many of those during the season. But he would just figure out a way to get to the basket if he was not hitting from outside.
Yeah, Colton is a very good, probably one of the best basketball players to come through the hallways of Piqua High School. Is going to start his career, at Wittenberg. He's on the team this year, but he really won't get to play till next year. He's going to redshirt this year. But he's just a very smart basketball player. And then you throw in a Bradley Holbein, who, if you take a look at our wins, when we played well, Bradley Holbein always played well when we played well. He was kind of our glue, and he may not have scored the most points, but if you take a look at last year in crunch time and the season where we beat Greenville on senior night, and those 2 tournament wins, Bradley Holbein played some great basketball for us. So, and you mentioned Derek Gaullett, but another guy is C.J. Davis, who was a kid that can come out and just spark us, hit 3 or 4 threes right away before you even blink. And give us a quick 12 points. And the thing that I'm very proud about CJ is he spent 3 years as just being a shooter, but if you saw him play last year, that he put a lot of time and work in his game. He could handle the ball for us and played some pretty good defense.
He did do a good job, and I remember him in some of the games just absolutely wiping the boards clean for me too. And Bachman would get boxed out, and Nate was the other guy who swept the boards a lot, and we're going to talk about him because he's a senior this year. But getting back to Bradley averaged 12 points a ball game last year. He was your 2nd leading scorer, and Monin was right behind him with 11 points something. And the combination of those 3 guys, when CJ was really hitting the boards well, and then you had Gaullett hitting from the outside, and Bradley was getting the ball up the floor and feeding it off to the right people, you guys were just unstoppable.
Yeah, and we were very explosive offensively. The thing is we kind of had to be at times last year just because, like we said, we weren't as athletic as we are this year. So kind of a flip-flop a little bit is this year we think we're more athletic and we're pretty sound defensively. But now what we need is for some guys to kind of step up and handle the scoring load a little bit.
Well, last year, getting into the schedule a little bit, you started the first game of the season with a really nice win, a 14-point win at Springboro. Did you really expect that? I mean, Springboro has always been tough. They're a bigger school than we are, Division I, and they've always been tough. They've had some outstanding big kids down there. We haven't had a big kid, I'm talking 6'8" or bigger, around here for a long time. What aren't we feeding these guys? What can we do? Are we not recruiting well enough? But anyhow, you go down there, you knock them off by 14 points, and then you go to Stebbins and you struggle a little bit there. You only won that ball game by 7 down in that pit. And then you come back and Walpaw beats you 71-54.
Yeah, last year, if people that followed us through our preseason know, we didn't have a very good November as far as scrimmage-wise. Now, practice-wise, we were always doing the right things and getting better. And I think we kind of snuck up on Springboro a little bit. I'm sure they saw some of our scrimmages and note that we didn't play very well. And we're the type of team that we're not going to show all our cards in our scrimmages. We're going to focus on some fundamental things, just like we did this year. So I think we may have snuck up on them a little bit last year, but they ended up being a very good basketball team and winning the South.
Yes.
So that was a great win. And then anytime you can win at Stebbins, that's huge. No matter what their record is, it's always a tough place to play in that little pit, kind of a smaller gym, and they have some kids that can really get up and down the floor a little bit. And looking back, I think we went Friday, Saturday. That Wapak game was moved. Wapak's usually our opener, and that was moved to a Tuesday night, I think. And I think we kind of had a little bit of dead legs, a little bit of letdown as far as our defensive effort. And Wapak's a very good basketball team. Scouting them and getting all we can to head into the opener. Wapakoneta feels very highly of their basketball team this year, just like their football team. They have 9 players that did not play football this year. They only had 1 football player on the team. So they're going to be ready to go. So the good news is that it's our first game, so we're not going to obviously overlook Wapak this year.
Yeah, and that's an away game, and actually we're doing this program on the 29th on a Tuesday night, and your first game is this Friday at Wapakoneta. I think one of the things that impressed me about last year is you played Greenville 3 times. You split the first 2, and then you came back and you beat them, knocked them off in the tournaments. And they had the Gioza kid, they had some other kids that were pretty good basketball players. To be able to beat a team like that, and especially in a tournament which is foreign territory to us, and it was our second game. I think Beaver Creek was the first team we knocked off. And you talk about Beaver Creek. I mean, there's a team that is usually very strong, another Division I. Usually have a lot of big kids, and you took care of Beaver Creek in the tournament. You came back, you knocked out Greenville. That score was pretty close, if I remember. It was 56-53. Beaver Creek was 68-60, our favorite. That win over Greenville in that second tournament game gave you the privilege of playing Wayne, which was very lopsided. I mean, they're an outstanding ball club. They had 12 guys on that team at least, all of which could have started any place else.
And that's the thing about Wayne too, is not only do they have a lot of good guys, they're very well coached, and after seeing how we played in our first 2 games, they were not going to overlook us. And they probably played one of their best games of the year versus us in that sectional final.
Yeah. Sydney, if I remember correctly, you split with Sydney last year. I've got it over here on this other piece of paper. Yeah, Sydney, you split with them. Butler's your first home game this year, and you beat them twice last year. Butler is a team that normally is pretty strong. They've been down the last few years, but you can't. That's not your problem. That's theirs, right? You're just going to take advantage of it. And then Greenville, 2 out of 3 times you beat them. Troy, you split with Troy. You had a heck of a game with Troy here. And then you go down there, and that final score, if I remember correctly, was not indicative of the type of team that you were. Where did it go? The Troy game last year was 55-50. You lost it down there. You beat them at home prior to that with a score of 65-51. You beat them by 14, lost by 5 down there. And that was a Friday game after a Tuesday night Butler. Do you think that may be and that was your 20th game of the season too? There is a wall. You think he kind of hit that wall a little bit?
Maybe, but more, if you take a look at that Troy game, it was Troy's senior night. It's the Piqua-Troy rivalry. So I thought we didn't play that bad. We just didn't make, I don't know if it was so much a physical wall, but more like a mental wall that night. I think we kind of pressed too much as far as putting a little bit too much pressure on us. And if you watch that game, it was totally not who we were. We had probably 24 turnovers that game. Wow. Didn't rebound the basketball very well. We think that if we can hold our turnovers 12 and under and win the boards, that we can win almost any game. Yeah. So it was just one of those things where Troy played extremely well, and Troy is coached by a legend. Even though his legend was not made at Troy, he is a Shelby County legend, and he's done a very good job. And as we look into this year, I'm sure Troy is going to be better. And anytime the football team has success, the basketball team usually picks up a little bit on that. So. We expect nothing but Troy's best shot. Not only is it a rivalry, but in Paul Bremgen's second year, we know they're going to be better. Yeah, there's a carryover from the football team as far as athletes are concerned every year to the basketball team. Same with us. Yes, definitely.
The same thing. But so then this year in the GWAC North, we've got Butler, Tip, Sydney, Greenville, and Troy.
Correct.
Okay. So Trotwood's someplace else now.
In the south.
Worry about them.
No, we do worry about them.
But we have to play them.
We have to play them, and it does go on our division record.
Yeah, but we're only playing them once.
Play them once. Yep.
Yeah, and that game is here.
Yes.
And that's on Friday the 6th of January. Tecumseh's in there, that's a new one. That's the Thursday night, the 29th of December.
Yeah, and that's actually part of the holiday tournament.
Oh, is that part of the
So-
holiday tournament? Okay, so who all's in the holiday
The
tournament?
holiday tournament is Tecumseh, Belmont, and Tip this year.
Okay, Tecumseh, Belmont, and Tip. Okay, so the last time you played Tecumseh was the year before in the tournament.
Right, and lost by one at the buzzer.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And that was a game I really, really, really going down there thought you were gonna win. I
And-
thought you guys were ready.
And that is kind of indicative, we just talked about the Troy game. It's kind of the same thing happened. We felt very confident going into that game, and it was one of those things where we didn't play our best. We still had a chance at the end, and all our seniors were juniors at that point. And it was a learning experience for us to know to kind of how you have to handle yourself both physically, mentally, and emotionally in tournament games. So looking back, you always want to say, we should have got that one, but I honestly think that experience in that game kind of helped us with last year's team and our success in the tournament last year.
If I remember that game correctly, it was a turnover very late in the ball game that ended up causing us to lose that ball game. We had an opportunity to win it, and we turned the ball over
Yep.
in the final few seconds.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. So, okay, Trotwood after the holiday tournament. West Carrollton's on the record of the schedule this year. You're gonna go to Xenia this year. You didn't play them last year. St. Mary's is back. Last year you beat them 72-44. Northmont's on the schedule this year, lost to them. Fairborn's new this year. Actually back at Stebbins again. You won that last time was 60-53. And then Butler, of course, we beat them twice. Tippecanoe, we met them in the holiday tournament last year.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. 52-47, that was a loss in overtime. That was another game I thought we should have won and didn't. Milton Union is on our schedule this year. Why, Milton Union's of what, Division 3, 4?
Division 3.
3?
It's always, we enjoy playing the local schools. You always have kind of a bigger crowd, when you go to a Xenia or, a Northmont or someplace, especially if you have to go there on a Tuesday night. Sometimes the crowds aren't as big, and that's one of the drawbacks of having a big conference. So anytime we get a chance to play a local school, and Milton is is Division 3, but they're not that much smaller than us when you take a look at the numbers. And they have a very nice school, and they're going to have a new coach this year, and it'll be a good ball game.
They were very successful in football, and being a smaller school, they're going to have a lot of kids coming over from the football team to the basketball team. So obviously they've got athletes. You can't overlook a team like that. Not at all. February 11th, Elida's coming here. We didn't play them last year.
Yeah, we did. We played them at Elida.
Okay, that's right. I was thinking we missed a year, but that was the football team.
Yes.
We missed a year with them. You beat them 63-59 up there. Coach Thompson's been down here, 2 or 3 times watching you since then. Neat guy, and he'll be ready for you this year, won't he?
Yeah, they're another team that's always very well coached. Very much like a Wapakoneta, as far as the kids do fundamental things very well. So another game where we can't overlook Elida, even though they're, I think, a Division II team. So we just got to make sure that every day we hit the floor, that we're continually getting better, whether that's in practice or a game, and kind of control the things that we control, which is our effort, our mental focus, and our emotional state.
You were 5-5 in the GWAC North last year. 2 of those losses came from Trotwood. Trotwood is out this year. That doesn't count against you in the North?
Yes, it does.
It does. Okay,
yes.
It does count against you in the North. So, but you only played them once.
Right.
So what do you? Obviously you're shooting to go to 20-0 and 10-0 and all that stuff. What's acceptable?
What we want to do is make sure the second round of the North, kind of how our schedule shakes out this year, is we'll play everybody in the North and have one round done by early January, and then throughout the whole month of January till the second to last week of January, we all play South teams, and so that second round that starts end of January with the North, we want to make sure we're within striking distance. When we talk about the North this year, obviously it has to start with City, and even though we lose Trotwood out of our division, City's going to bring a team that may be rival Trotwood's athletic ability, and they have a new coach. that is kind of have them amped up again. And then after Sydney, we take a look at the records from last year. There was 3 teams that were very even. I think Sydney was 6-4, we were 5-5, and Greenville was 5-5. So. I think that's going to be the case again. I think DJ Wyrick at Butler is going to have Butler improved. Coach Visser at Tip City has been doing a very good job in this going into his 2nd year, has that program running. And of course, we already talked about Bremen at Troy. And Greenville has a new coach and with some new ideas. And they bring back the Gable kid, which is probably the best player in the G-Walk. I think after Sydney, we're all kind of about even again, and we just want to make sure we're within striking distance that 2nd time around. So that's going to include, holding court on our home court through that 1st round in the North, and also, trying to steal a couple from the South, because how it kind of pans out is we'll play everybody in the North. That goes on our division record, and then everybody in the South once. And those games will also go on our division record. So, just because we're not playing North teams, those games are still very important. And we got to make sure we take care of home court and try to steal a couple on the road to make sure we're within striking distance down in the home stretch.
Good plan. That game with Butler starting the 2nd round in the North is on Tuesday the 31st, and that would be January. And then the next game is Tip, and you do the West Milton thing, Milton Union thing, and in Sydney, and then Lyda jumps in there, and you finish with 2 games in the North, Greenville and Troy. Let's talk a little bit about your roster. You got 6 seniors this year. You lost 7 last year. You got 9 juniors, according to what I saw. Didn't see any sophomores on your roster.
No, first year in 6 years that we've not had anyone brought up either from JV to varsity or even from freshman to JV. So, we kept 15 on varsity this year, 13 on JV, and 13 on freshman. So our numbers are bigger than ever.
That's great. Your programs in the grade schools, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, seem to be working.
And this year, for the first time ever, in 6 years, we have 2 junior high teams that are playing full GWAC schedules.
Excellent, excellent. Let's talk about some of these guys. Obviously, Nate Monin has got to be one of your leaders on the floor. He was 11 points a game last year. I don't know what his rebounding was, but he was one of the top 2 or 3 in the GWAC in rebounding. The guy has just improved every year on things. I know when I came back after his sophomore year and watched him in the first game as a junior, and he did a spin move down inside, and I went, whoa, where did that come from? And then, because here's this big guy, 45, 50 pounds?
About 265 now.
265 now. And he can do the spin move out there on those guys, and it surprised the opponent also. But with stuff like that, he can bring the ball to the floor. I talked to you last year, what are you going to do when you lose all these quarterback guards? And he said, well, they can bring the ball to the floor. And he did last year.
Yes.
And what I saw him do, would bring the ball up the floor, he brought the big guy out from underneath the basket. And now all of a sudden you've got your guys down there that can do it, like CJ, can work the work the ball under the basket like that. So, okay, you got Ben Smeething, another good athlete, averaged 3 points a game last year. The 6 seniors you've got coming back this year only average 17 points a game. You've given up 40-some points a ball game. Where's the rest of it coming from?
You take a look at last year. I think Caleb Patton from the first game to the last game improved dramatically in that Greenville game and in the tournament games versus Beaver Creek and then Greenville again. He played some of his best basketball. So we're gonna expect a little bit more out of Caleb Patton. And then you take a look at Hunter Hawk, who just tore his ACL his sophomore year, and put in the time, had a very successful football season, has really worked this summer. This was the first summer that we kind of had Hunter around due to not being injured. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people with how well he can shoot the ball. And then you take a look at Gage Smith, who did not get a lot of minutes last year, but we're really going to count on Gage this year to be able to stretch the floor. That's one thing where we're going to lack a little bit as far as kids that can kind of stretch the floor, especially until some of these juniors get their feet wet. Some of these seniors who haven't had a lot of playing time can kind of get going a little bit. So Gage is probably our best shooter right now, and so we're going to count on him to stretch the floor. Another kid, JJ Rohrbach, has put in a lot of time this summer, is going to be able to kind of give Nate a break. Nate will not have to play as many minutes, and that way we can count on Nate to play a little bit more of those point guard duties. So that's a positive for us. And then you take a look at Cam Ashton, who's put in a lot of time as well, and to give us a valuable minute here or there. So we expect some big things. You know, it's the good news is that we have some guys with some chips on their shoulder with a lot to prove. That's also the bad news because we have some guys that haven't had a lot of time and have some stuff to prove. So we expect some big things, and they've been great this preseason with their leadership and focusing on what we need to focus on. So
you had 3 preseason games. Was it Bell Fountain?
Bell Fountain, Shawnee, and
was it
Arcana.
Shawnee or
Springfield Shawnee.
Okay. And then who was the last one? Ansonia.
Yes.
Okay.
Arcana.
Arcana, I'm sorry. How did you do in those? I saw some of the numbers in the
Just a lot like last year. We focus on fundamentals in the preseason. We don't run a set in the preseason. We play primarily one defense in the preseason. We showed none of our other defenses other than in our matchup zone. So people that look at those scores kind of think, well, what's wrong? They're down a little bit. But the same thing happened last year, and then we come out versus Springboro and beat them by 14. So we feel very confident heading into Wapakoneta. Like I said, our seniors have been great with their leadership. And we've just been getting better every time we hit the floor.
Well, when I referred to those scores, I wasn't being negative about the scores. I
Right.
understand
It's
what
just
you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But in each of those games and those scores I saw, I mean, you were very close all the time.
Yes, very close.
Very
competitive. Just doing what we do, running our basic stuff, and trying to focus on some of the fundamentals. So I know, like I said, any Piqua fan who hasn't seen us play. Kind of probably see some of those scores, and even versus Arcanum we lost a couple quarters, and you're thinking, well, how can you lose to a Division III school like that? But at the same point in time, the great thing about our guys in our program is that they know our goals and they work toward our goals, and they don't let the preseason stuff kind of get into their head. So we're very excited to open up Friday.
Who's your quarterback?
Bring
the ball up the floor?
I think Nate's going to have to start handling the ball. That'll be shared a little bit with Hunter, a little bit of Caleb Patton, but we're going to rely on Nate a lot this year to bring the ball up. Like you said, it kind of happened by accident. Kind of whenever our big man, Nate, can bring the ball up the floor, like you said, versus teams that pressure us, like a Trotwood or like a Wapakoneta made to try to do to us. The one thing it does is bring the guy out of the paint, their big guy, and that allows our not so big guys to have a little bit more confidence in finishing when we do break that pressure. Years past, when you have a smaller point guard and when he brings the ball up and you can break the press as much as you want, but if they have a 6'8" guy standing underneath the rim, it's very hard to kind of make them pay for pressure. So giving Nate that opportunity, him embracing that opportunity, and just by the nature of basketball, creating that mismatch. We really like what Nate can do bringing the ball.
Well, he can hit the 3 out there from also. I've seen him do it.
Right.
But what I think is so neat about that is that you get that 6'8" guy who would normally be playing a more of a low post under the basket, guarding a guy like Nate who's moving back and forth across the key, trying to get an open or setting up a play or something. You've now moved that big guy out to almost the foul line. And that opens up that whole back third of the court for your other guys to play basketball.
Right, and that's one thing we do have a lot this year. A Ben Schmeezing, a Hayden Shrub, a Zian Harrison. We have some guys that can kind of get to the hoop a little bit. So that's always an advantage to kind of bring Nate out a little bit, like you said, to open up that bottom third, open up that lane, it's for our guys that are very good at slashing to kind of get to the bucket and finish.
Okay. Well, listen, Coach, we appreciate it. We're going to take a break here now in just a minute. We're going to go introduce the varsity players on the Piqua High School men's basketball team to you in just a moment, but I want to thank our sponsors again. First Choice Paint and Body Shop is our anchor sponsor. F45 Fitness is another one of our supporting sponsors. Morris Heating and Cooling on North Main Street in Piqua is another one of our great sponsors, and also Sherry Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram Truck. So we want to make sure you people take advantage of those people who support WOTVC with their donations. So don't go away. The coach and I are going to go out on the court, and we're going to get the players together. We're going to have them introduce themselves to you, so that when you come out to the games, you'll already know who the players are. And don't forget, February 2nd, this coming Friday night, you got Wapakoneta. The Indians going to Wapakoneta to play a game. First home game is February 9th, the following Friday night. Butler's going to be here in Piqua High School. We'll be back in a minute. We're back. We have to take this opportunity now to introduce you to the players on the Piqua High School men's basketball team, coached by Heath Butler. We got a first one right here with us, and you are?
Gage Smith. I'm a senior and I play forward.
Hunter Hawk, I'm a senior, I'm a guard.
Caleb Patton, senior, I'm a guard.
I'm Nate Martin, I'm a senior, and I'm center.
And he's very big too.
JJ Orwell, senior, forward.
Sam Ashton, senior, guard.
I'm a junior, I play small forward.
Hayden Shrub, junior, small forward.
You didn't say small. Small guard.
Corey Coughlin, junior, guard.
Moses Topsy, I'm a junior, and I'm a forward.
Logan Drive, I'm a junior, and I'm a forward.
Caleb Brown, senior, guard.
There you have it, folks, the 2016-2017 Piqua High School men's basketball team, all 15 of them. You got to come out and watch these guys play. As I said earlier, the first game is this Friday night, the 2nd of December up at Wapakoneta. The first home game is the following Friday night, the 9th of December, and we hope that you'll come out and watch them. Again, I want to thank the coach, Heath Butler, for doing the show again this year. I'm Lloyd Shoemaker, your host. Thanks for watching. We'll see you the next time.